So this video will be a breakdown of the middle and late stage national spirits and governments, just like how I did for my early game walkthrough for eras 1 through 4, covering the strengths, weaknesses, and situations that favor each, then my opinion on their relative strengths. This video won't be including the DLC spirits because my next Millennia video will be a review of the DLCs, so subscribe and stay tuned for that. Then after I break them all down, we'll be touring through some of my old save files to show off strong combinations that will give you a fun twist on your game. Era 5's governments might be the most important decision we'll be covering. Not only will it be your government for the next 3 eras, but informs your strategy you'll be taking to implement a victory in the long term. Your choices this time are Empire, Feudal Monarchy, and Republic. This is kind of an odd one. It gives you bonuses in terms of getting a strong build in government XP, but what you're building towards are a bunch of kind of scattered buffs, with only one being actually important for developing a strategy for your nation, which is -1 culture upkeep per region. So this allows you to incorporate more regions without having to worry about penalties for integrating them. Start at the penalty of 0 for one town, 3 for the next, 7 for the next after that. I think it's 15 after that. It's pretty brutal, but if you get a discount on each one, it can be kind of nice. Compared to other governments, you also get an additional culture with its default stat spread. By the time you're in Era 5, you probably want to have at least by the middle of the era, you probably want to have 4 capitals integrated into your city no matter what build you're doing. Otherwise you'll start to fall behind pretty hard. Empire does have one of the best innovation events though, increasing the goods you get from trade posts on outposts, so you'll get double the goods back home, which is a great one. You get a pretty useless ship down here. Bombardment's okay if you want to be using bomb vessels and stuff like that. The kind of more noteworthy one here is imperialism kind of focuses you on and getting a bit of culture per capital taken. This is like any capital if you attack it, so it's okay in that regard. It's basically if you want to pivot down a warpath, it'll help you, sure. The extra domestic export slots is kind of funny considering there are other options to that kind of does this the same without kind of pigeonholing yourself into taking the warpath. And Empire's the best at getting you to squeeze all the culture you can out of taking that kind of approach. Now we have Feudal Monarchy, which is basically Kingdom from the previous government 2.0, but this time it's fucking crazy. Because not only do you get your buff to prosperity quicker, but you also get buffs to the vassals themselves, which will make them start growing much faster and improving their own tiles much faster. Throne Room's basically a straight upgrade from the previous one as well. You get less personal buffs to your homeland, but what you do get is Royal Court, which you want to rush to immediately so you can fill out this tree quick. So basically, grab one of these, grab Royal Court, then whatever vassals you already have built up will get even better. And then you can immediately jump into Suzerainty, which gives you a +5 prosperity max, and that is an additional 50% to your vassal meter, so instead of a max of 300 prosperity, you'll get 350 instead. If you've been paying attention to how your vassals work, once you get to 300%, you're already swinging and getting a ton of benefits back, such as the knowledge it brings in, and the extra culture and improvement points, and wealth. This will basically jam you up even higher and get a whole ton of power. And then you also get diplomacy up as well, which is good for builds that need a lot of it, or if you want to get the most out of diplomacy factors like canceling wars and such. Getting your domain XP build up is nice because you can start filling out social fabrics, which are useful for some of the victory conditions later in the game. And government is one of the tougher ones to fill out if you're not actively gunning for it. So Empire and Feudal Monarchy are actually quite good at doing filling this out compared to Republic, which is one of its weaknesses. And then finally, there's more to talk about with this one. Population, you can increase the population of a friendly vassal. This is an increasing type of power where every 4 turns you'll have access to it again, but it'll cost more. But if you have a favored vassal that you're planning on integrating later in this era, you can probably buff them up to like 30 pop pretty quick, and it'll be an instant boon. So the big growth that you get from all this is already impressive, not only here, but down here as well for your vassals. But then there's an innovation event, which increases your vassal's border expansion even faster by like a lot, and your population growth by a bit. The values are great here, so you'll end up getting a new population almost every 4 turns, which will outpace most of your normal cities, so keeping a bunch of strong vassals around. Feudal Monarchy is also great if you had just been fighting a neighbor for a while and you just want to get value out of the rewards from fighting there. So even if you didn't go kingdom the first time around, it might make sense just to go here just from the rewards that you get. If you haven't been paying attention, I think this is almost always the best option. And it's kind of not close. Republic is kind of your basic option. It's just you make buildings that give you some decent buffs. So you're centered around the Palazzo. Not only does capitals get a little more production than other ones, you also get production from here. And government XP. Domestic export slot, just like Empire. And this one also buffs the culture in your region. It's not minusing the culture, but it's plussing it, so... The kind of big knock against it I have here, though, is just a lot of this focuses on luxury, but luxury is also the most abundant need in the game, which I always thought was a weird choice. So you basically get almost nothing from these. Plazas will help you with your needs a little bit here, but you also get the Atelier Studio, which isn't actually that unique of a building. These get replaced in the next era by, I think, either public schools or public libraries that give you one more knowledge than this. So it's a very temporary help. Yeah, Republic's innovation event, it's only okay. Basically, many items that are consumed for luxury will also give you a little bit of production, which is fine. Like, helps out fine, because I don't think production's the end-all be-all, but for the next era after this, there's a lot more buildings to build, so it can give you an edge in that regard. Obviously, region level's a dud, too. Like, what the fuck? Like, all of these are bad. And this is only okay. Yeah, so I'm not particularly wowed by either of these. It's just kind of Feudal Monarchy that wins out most of the time here. One thing of note with Era 5 governments and how it relates to earlier decisions in the game is that the main reason I always give the edge to Imperial Dynasty over Kingdom for the Era 3 government is that since Kingdom requires the constant upkeep of government XP, by the time you hit Era 5, you'll have very low government XP to be able to invest into your newer government in this age. So say you're going from dynasty to imperial monarchy, you can immediately jump into royal court and get your government XP build immediately. Whereas if you went the kingdom route and were constantly using order research and stuff like that, you'd have to build your throne room and restart from zero, which is an immediate disadvantage. Though they feel about the same in like the short term, in the long term, it's a completely different result. I guess taking a stop and explaining the social fabric a bit will be helpful here. What you need to keep in mind with these is that there's only 3 good ones. Ingenuity reduces cost of improvements, such as the one you place in cities, and also upgrading outposts. Those also get a discount. So that's the nice part about this, except ingenuity points are pretty tough to get because you're probably going to be spending your engineering XP as often as you can. Organization is good, reduces expansion cost on tiles, so that just means the border's natural growth of your tiles. That doesn't mean the expand tiles domain power. So your cities will end up growing gigantic. This one was a vassal until it hit 30 pop, and as you can see, it grew out to be gigantic, taking up this whole space. Same with the Yokohama here. The last good one and the most obvious one is tenacity. Reduces upkeep for units, so you can have bigger and bigger armies without less of a benefit. This one also scales the fastest for getting the good benefits out of it. You get 8% reduction per point. And if you've been out of wars for a bit, getting more of these is not very difficult. Tolerance is terrible. It gives you a small amount of gold back. No one cares. Unrest is so plentiful to come by that it'll only rarely help. And Insight gives you a small research reduction, but Insight is also used for getting variant ages like the Age of Alchemy, so it's worth investing in that regard. Era 6. Got a whole suite of options here for national spirits. This whole tree is basically a way to leverage diplomacy into getting you knowledge back. The idea is get alliances, and then you can fill out your national library, get you foreign manuscripts that aren't a lot, but once you have them, you can convert them further into books, which will double the effectiveness. Scientific process is terrible, don't bother. And your great library will get buffed to give you a little edge in terms of getting all your domains done. Getting a bonus education from books is very nice because it frees up a bunch of slots for improvements in your cities. So you can get away with that, and Scholarly Society will give you a big chunk of education as well as some books. Overall, it's okay, but you know how aggressive the AI is in this game, and garnering alliances without planning ahead of time makes this kind of a hard sell in most games, so just understand that before you go into it. Commanders is straightforward. It's just like, you want better leaders? There you go. And they're cheap. You want cheap force march? There you go. Want leaders to not die in combat? There you go. Get extra veterancy level. I always found commanders, though, as kind of an issue of getting your Warfare XP built at this point, because I assume you usually pick it if you're just gonna be fighting or continuing a fight. And at that point, you're just gonna be spending so much Warfare XP, like promoting units and force marching them in the first place. That building to get these discounts is actually kind of tough and not really worth it. And these give you some slight ahead of time units that you don't have to research the extra combat, so you can skip certain research slots. You don't need to grab standing army, though it does increase your max army size. You can grab anything else here. You spend money, you get good units. It's that simple. Mercenaries are high upkeep. Look at that, 40 gold per. As well as privateers, which are naval units. So you can use whatever money you got on hand for your build and just be able to get money back, as well as get a colony improvement that gives you warfare XP. It's pretty terrible, because not only do you have to research colony, then you have to put down these improvements, which are only on open terrain, but so is like armories, which are the same thing. And you've probably researched it if you need the mercenaries to protect you. You're creating armies, so it's just kind of an odd option. There's a diplomacy option. You know how messing with diplomacy is not usually worth it. Yeah, I don't see this ever coming up unless you're playing like an actual multiplayer game. And security details good enough. Basically, it gives you strong flexibility without having to have your units next to somewhere in your territory or like a pioneer. So that part of it's very strong. Overall, it's mostly just an option if you're having fun. If you're having fun and you think you're probably already gonna win. War Priest is one that's religion exclusive. It's sort of a combo you'll see of like commanders and crusaders from the previous age. You get the benefit of getting jungle improvement and expansion, which is neat. Like if you had like a production logging town in a jungle that you spawn next to, you can convert it to a farming town and work the same thing. You get a ton of food. Look at all that. What the main rub of this is to get these Jaguar leaders, but not like a lot of promotion costs, which is nice. And they can get big buffed. And then as soon as you take out cities, you can spread your religion into there and get like big culture bombs. As well as your pyramid temples. This gives you like a nice improvement. It's only jungle exclusive, which makes this a kind of very specific option if you want to use it. I don't think this was a popular option, and it shouldn't really surprise you when you actually read through it. Also, human sacrifice, I don't know why you'd want to do this. Population culling, like it might be useful in later eras, but even then, how much of a boost? I don't even know that. Now we finally get to some of the fun ones. Inventors is a good way to get ahead on the next era, because they rely on stuff like an early electric generating improvement, as well as giving you free power that will buff the inventors' laboratories that you build. These improvements are laid through engineering XP, by the way. It's not improvement points. And so you set them, you can convert books to improve their knowledge. This will increase your education demands, but also gives you small innovation buffs, as well as some bigger ones like doubling what cutting edge lets you do. And then it finally culminates into the World Fair, where you can get culture money out of some inventions and analytics. It's not like a big buff in the end, because you get it once, as well as this fun little extra one that gives you a bunch of knowledge and innovation for not that much. Same rule applies as earlier eras, but not to such a stark degree. It's just like your engineering XP might be more beneficial elsewhere for pioneers and such. So keep that in mind when looking at these engineering ones. This is just an option if you're having fun. It's a mini game. Essentially, it doesn't tell you up front, but you might notice at the back here, the goal is to get your capital's population to 60. Pick this and choose your new capital. But as soon as you pick this up, all 6 of these options will update and give you a free 3 population per one. So you click it and you get 3 free population. Obviously, only pick this if you have space in your main capital and space to expand, because you're going to want as much space as possible to really utilize this population in an effective way for whatever improvements you're working on. Even then, going over like 50-ish pop, like I don't know how you could ever like leverage it. As fun buffs, you get buildings to help you along with your population growth, engineers quarter, and education will help you out. Courtyard homes aren't good. There's better options. Like poor houses are already 30 housing, and this is just like not worth it. And you just got a huge unrest suppression thing from this, so you're just not gonna use these. Silk is just a siege weapon. It's decent if you don't want to like invest the research into grabbing anything else, and then you get some walls. So Sultans can be a fun time. If you already think you're gonna win the game, it can just be a fun extra thing to do. Now we got colonialism, and I wish all the national spirits in this game were designed to be this fun, but we'll settle for this. Okay, so there's so many options. Okay, so first off, bonus water movement. Get 2 more tiles and extra sight range, as well as a free settler. Doesn't cost you anything, so that's nice. You get culture power that allows you to... Well, place your claim allows you to put colony outposts, even if you don't have them researched, I'm pretty sure. You can put them anywhere, so it's a high-level outpost for free. Essentially, you don't have to pay engineering XP, which is great. Gives you culture back, gets you to put any sort of outpost improvements you want. You actually don't want to combo this with Empire, because outposts will instead have trade factories, which won't get the buff, I'm pretty sure. So we'll get double goods from these outposts that you're planting everywhere. And then you get this insane buff if you're at war with nations or you're not on good terms with them. You can still get trade out. Oh my god. Because usually you're just stuck to the basic one. And then colonies get 2 extra culture per colony whenever it goes here. Eminent domain is just kind of a goof. It's just like you can grab minor nations. This doesn't really come up unless there's like a minor nation that's thoroughly like out of range of everyone. And then there's a pretty giant text here that gives you a pretty giant buff. You might be seeing just how strong something like this could be comboed with feudal monarchy, because that gives you 50% to your vassal prosperity max, and this will give you another 75, which is so much. And while you know it, feudal monarchy also gives you diplomacy XP as one of its builds. So you might have a big excess of diplomacy XP on the back pile before you reach this age. And to top it all up, you get this insane thing. Boost prosperity in all vassals by 50% for 4 turns. And it ignores the prosperity cap. And you think, oh, another plus 50. No. That's 50% of the max. So like the 425 max prosperity, if you have feudal monarchy and macroeconomics, that turns into over 600% speed. And you get that for 4 turns. So all the returns that you get from each of your vassals will be multiplied by that amount. So you get a ton of culture back, which allows you to re-up this again, even if you don't have a culture build. Isn't that crazy? If you aren't shocked, this is my favorite option of all these, and I think it's usually the strongest, just because it combos with the strongest government. So, I feel bad for Great Masters coming out now. Even though it's also a good option, it sorta just doesn't compare. Great Masters is a bit of a diplomacy gimmick, but it also gives you more, unlike Scholars. You get Master Artists, which you can go up to foreign capitals, whether you're at war or hostile with them. Obviously, if you're at war or hostile, they'll kill your unit, so be careful in that case. But you can walk up your Master Artist up to there, and you'll get a free Apprentice Artist, which you can upgrade into a Normal Artist. A Normal Artist can be used to throw a bit of luxury on a capital by equipping it to it like you would a merchant, or use it to max out your culture gauge at any given moment, so you can get multiple culture pops in one turn if you need that. Since artists have an increasing scale of cost when you spawn them, Apprentices allows you to get a more fixed rate of upgrades because they will always be 75 to upgrade it to a normal one. Also, getting more great Master Artists just means you have to upgrade the Normal Artists again for another 75. That's how you finish this line. So once you get more Master Artists, you can equip them to the same towns your Normal Artists are equipped to, or Apprentices. Same difference. So once you equip them, you can also get these bigger bonuses out of it. Normal and Apprentice Artists will create this, while Master Artists will create this, get a bit more out of it. The Innovation event then also gives you 1 culture for each artwork and masterpiece, which is huge. You can get even more culture out of it, and then also get a building, which gives you 5 culture. I count it 5 culture. This can combo decently well with Republic if you want to keep building buildings that give you big bonuses. So 5 culture will allow you, if you're integrating more cities, like they'll eat up most of the penalties so you can get another one out. Just pretty nice for this whole strategy. As well as immigration being replaced with guild training. A population increasing source. It's a little more expensive at 60 base, but there's no limitation because immigration normally allows you to up population in a town with 10 or less pop. This just gives you 2 population in any town anywhere, which is pretty nice. This sucks. Who cares? And then you finally end it with local reforms getting replaced with local reforms for all your towns at once, which is very nice because you just got a ton of culture from this and the innovation event. So it can really accelerate your towns and get them growing all at the same pace. Get an even spread of big towns, unlike something like Sultans, which will only give you the 1 capital. So in terms of strength, I think Colonialism and Great Masters tend to edge out most of the other ones. Commanders is solid, of course. Inventors can make sense if you want to leapfrog ahead. It's sort of like early explorers in that way, but it's not really the same. One thing I did mention about Sultans, though, is you have an innovation event that gives you plus engineering XP for all these quarters, which is nice. Yeah, some of these options are kind of just win more strategies. Like Mercs, you're probably just already winning the game. Sultans, you're probably already doing quite well. Scholars, like, you're probably under very low threat if you're picking this. I do need to touch on some of the earlier era research points that are important. since you'll only really be taking 3 of these during any particular era unless you're way ahead. Picking out like what's important here is ideal. I've already gone over the Age of Kings, but I do want to double down on the importance of getting the Treatise Project because that can inform how important production is for your continued growth as an empire. You don't get as many buildings in Age of Kings, or even too many in Age of Renaissance, which give you things like your waterworks, but they aren't expensive items to build. Renaissance has an important one for getting the growth of your empire. It's deep mines and blast furnaces, as well as brickworks to a certain extent. These will get you much better engineering XP growth. Finance will give you more arts XP growth, and then paper mills are obviously important in this era. You also get turning your culture pops into a social doctrine wildcard if you are into that. Professional army is huge for any warfare builds, any national spirits you choose that are warfare, because you can get 3 warfare XP per outpost if you plan them out correctly. This is a huge deal to get alongside with like the expansion of your army stack size as well as pikes. Mercantilism is the same thing. Arsenal, converting steel. Turning 2 steel into 8 warfare XP is a gigantic jump and will be the basis of your continuing war efforts if you choose to pivot into that even further during this era. The variant ages that are going to help you along your way for certain domain paths are Age of Heroes for your 3rd era. It gives you much stronger culture and arts gain throughout the whole era, as well as giving you little blips of domain XP throughout. Age of Monuments as an equivalent for this will give you big bonuses to your research or your needs, especially culture. With ever increasing needs and having to reshuffle all your tile improvements of many shapes and sizes, it's not crazy to have to recheck what exactly your income is in each of these categories, or even deciding which national spirit you're going to take in the first place just by checking these numbers. Obviously you can make adjustments, but something I've found is that if you're not making much exploration XP in the early game related to one of your early domains, it's pretty unlikely that you'll be leveraging it that hard in the later eras either. Any kind of wrinkle with Great Masters though is that if you got Age of Blood for your Era 3, you actually don't have the option to spawn artists throughout the rest of the game. So this is the only way you can get artists. It's a real funny situation, because you can get ahead of your opponents in that regard. See that as a benefit if you want. Era 7's a bit different. It's the only age without any new national spirits or governments. The big aim of this era is to basically not tip the boat. The era in question is trying to disincentivize you from getting chaos charges and incentivizing you to get innovation charges. So avoiding warfare might be the name of the game here, as well as the impending revolution if you got the normal age, which a few turns into this era you will get rebels spawning all over your empire. So the whole idea is to keep your strategy together and not overspend where you are at that point in the game. And if you get out the other side, you run into Era 8, where you get both a new government and new national spirits. First we'll be covering the governments. First we have is Communist. So it'll move all your luxury and faith needs from all your cities, so you won't get any more bonuses in culture. But what this does allow you to have is an insane bonus for mining towns, as well as being able to max out any town for a increasing fee, as well as all these bonuses in production capability. This is going to be used in your run up to whichever victory path you want to pursue. The default one is going to be launching like a space colony type thing, which requires converting your production into these bonuses in itself. The bonuses in ideology are a special need for this era, so giving you bonuses throughout all that is pretty nice. You get cheaper tanks, nothing wrong with that. As well as your faction headquarters, which are going to be on all these governments. So the thing you need to keep in mind that you'll be sacrificing here is that your needs satisfaction will never be full again. By minusing 50% the need satisfaction, you won't... It's kind of confusing when you first look at it. You won't be getting your needs... Your needs won't be met with less efficiency. They just are capped. So you will grow slower for the rest of the game, as well as removing luxury. But in turn, you'll gain regional efficiency in all your capitals 10% for the entire game. And honestly, it works relatively well with something like Great Masters. Being able to spam that efficiency bonuses throughout all your towns, as well as the production you get. It can be a path to victory if you set your cards up right. Second up is democracy. This is a way to leverage getting tons of allies together to further increase your knowledge, as well as increasing knowledge and ideology in other ways. Unfortunately, it's a little weaker than the other ones overall, I'd say. But it does make up for it, and you do get so many angles in which you get more knowledge, it can be worth it. Office of Science gives you 20% knowledge regional efficiency, which is a pretty big deal depending on which place you build it in. 20% can be a lot if you have your town that's completely filled with books. You'll just be getting so much more out of it, as well as your computers from this era. That regional efficiency buff also stacks with the main executive office. You get extra defense, which may or may not be helpful, considering some of the national spirits in this age, but you'll be building a ton of computers, so it's a big deal that you get this buff throughout all of it, and can work well with some of the other spirits. So overall, it's kind of a solid, I didn't have any plans going into this era option, but can be more specialized than that. And like communism, you will have a secular government, so your religion will not give you as much of a culture bonus as it used to. Fundamentalist is the option that allows you to continue leveraging your religion. The way I see Fundamentalists shining compared to the other options is allowing you to get domain XP out of all kinds, which is an important layup for one of the victory conditions, which is maxing out your social fabrics. Max out some of these and you'll unlock a path to maxing out all of them as your victory age. And this will give you a great way to leverage using denouncements through diplomacy pressure by getting, like, I think it's 75 domain XP each time you denounce. So you can keep chaining that along with groups. It actually combos well with spice merchants in this way because you need to have a positive relationship, and spice merchants allows you to get a plus 75 bonus. Then in another 3 turns, then you can denounce them right back and drop it back down. Obviously, being able to leverage your religion continuously means that you'll have the edge in terms of culture throughout the rest of this age as well, so that gives you strong reason to pick all of these. But this is not the only thing that governments do, because as soon as you choose a government, you unlock factions. So depending on which faction you join, You'll be able to build your ideology points, which is also a need as well. But as it builds, if your faction reaches these certain thresholds of ideology first, you'll be able to unlock specific improvements that you'll only get. What you get for something like democracy is you get R&D building, which is another knowledge, as well as being able to convert simulations into even more knowledge, doubling down on that computers into knowledge scheme. Now we stand, it's a way to benefit allies. Creating allies, you'll be able to summon groups of soldiers at any point. You'll be seeing something like this as well later. And then you get money being able to rush research, which is huge because you'll end up with a huge money stockpile at this point in the game. Because there's just not very much to spend on it unless you're constantly fighting. Democracy has the best of these bonuses. But communism's first one has the Soviet factory as an unlock, which is huge. A better way to convert your metals into production. So even doubling down even further on the production front. Fundamentalism has its slight upsides because the middle option allows you for improvements that give you educations, now also give you +5 ideology. But the actual bonuses on lock there are just very minor in general. Not much to talk about for innovation events on these ones, except for communism. Communist probably has the best of these because you get production from on housing, as well as +4 ideology on factories of any kind, so that can give you a huge leg up. Here's the options for Age VIII, and this is kind of where I have an issue with how these are designed. Very few of these options, I say, will be like, this is gonna win me the game. They're mostly just kind of like a continuation on, or just kind of like a gimmick. Mainly speaking of space agency here, Age VIII, you get the race to the moon directive, and this is kind of just placing all your faith in getting knowledge out from continuing bonuses on these. But even then, just building the exploration XP to even be able to leverage these in time to complete the space race ahead of everyone else while building up these nodes so you get as much out of it as possible. It's just kind of unrealistic, especially considering adding extra directives will nerf your chances at being successful at each stage of the space race. It's like the expeditions in the Renaissance era. It always seemed like the weakest knowledge-based national spirit. You'll get specialists as like a continuous work project. I haven't personally messed around with this, so I have a harder time speaking on these later era national spirits in general, I will say, but Space Agency never seemed like a strong option. Spec Ops is just like, yeah, it's the war option for this route. Basically, just get cheap units that you can buy, better amphibious assaults, as well as the ability to just delete nation towns, which is pretty insane for at this point in the game, because if towns are chained together, you can basically ruin a competitor's full operation just from a click of this. You just have to be near them and click it down. Drone strike's good. Not like in real life, but, you know, has the ability. Completely kills the leader. It's pretty awesome for counterplay against commanders from the earlier era. And you also get more bombers. Well, better bombers as well as VTOLs. Your engineering ones are actually pretty compelling. Modernization basically gives you buffs to all your towns. Most of these aren't too interesting. The main ones you want to be focusing on here are overhead power lines, more electricity for free. I'll take it. As well as PVC plumbing, which gives you another town level you can raise to that your other competitors can't. You may be thinking already of the synergy of going communist and grabbing even bigger towns that can be upgraded from level 1 to level 5 instantly, as well as getting extra worker slots on certain things. More production, can't be hurt. Also, modernization has one of the best innovation events in this era. Level 5 towns give you +5 production and +5 power. So, you know this buff we got? Well, you get that times 3 or 4 depending on how many towns you have in the region. Silicon Valley is the option you pick when you didn't get any rare earth metals in your towns. To be serious though, this is a way to leverage extra knowledge from computer factories in this era, as well as getting even more out of doing simulations if you're going for that victory crisis age. Getting more computer simulations will speed you up towards it. Who would have figured that the tech billionaires are leading us to our demise here. The bonus education from data goods is also very excellent. Overall solid option if you just want to get a bit more out of these knowledge buildings that you're definitely going to be building anyway. And also just, you know, rare earth metals. They're rare for a reason. Like, I have most of this continent here, and we got 1, 2, ended up getting 3, 4, and that's honestly the higher end of estimates you can expect. The diplomacy options here are strong. International finance is also, it's mostly a gimmick. Other than being able to increase your work on vassals, this is just like a fun game to get your money as high as possible. You get more vassal prosperity, so if you don't feel like doing your revolution, you can up your prosperity even higher. A visa sponsorship is okay. Not a lot to talk about with this one, unfortunately. You do get a Bitcoin if you do your innovation event. Political science basically gives you kind of like well-rounded needs. It can be a good way to get some of the benefits that you'd get out of democracy, but in a package that works with any of the other governments/factions in this one. Being able to leverage your allies even further. Being able to spawn units and wherever your allies are. You can steal people's population, which is funny. Not very useful. Welfare state can be okay. Getting population even higher is not really a big deal, but honestly, these first two are the most important in this track. Annexation basically gives you a reset for expand border costs. So if you've been grabbing tiles through your exploration XP and it's gone up extremely high, like they cost hundreds now, political silence can reset that back to 30 basically, and it'll be costing you Diplo instead. You also get extra ideology, as you can see here in the description. Media conglomerate is basically the way you'll be able to accelerate one of your needs that's new to this era, which is like information and analytics. All the other benefits are very minor in comparison. It's mostly about getting the extra data. You'll get culture and ideology boosts throughout this, as well as increasing your government XP if you need that. I don't know how big of a buff the news cycle is, but you'll be able to see if you check it out. Yeah, this culture bonus is very small. It is an actual way to be able to finally force unrest into your city. Because by this point in the game, like if you don't have like minus like 1 billion in all your cities, I don't know what you're doing. Yeah, it's minus 34. Even in my mega city here, it's just like, okay, this is nothing. The rebels have created a town of their own. They don't even want to go inside our borders anymore. So sad. Pop culture's the final one here. This is basically your culture option in this era, though I don't really know why you'd be this short on culture at this point in the game. You'd think you'd have that locked down by now, so I don't really see the strong benefit here, but it works, so might as well talk about it. Get dance clubs as well as celebrities that you need to tour around, and you'll get big benefits in your cities by creating fashion lines around, as well as consumerism projects. So basically turning your production into culture. It can be useful in certain types of builds, I guess. Fast fashion here seems like the best option. Seems like the best one to get in this whole line, though. Getting more culture and art XP from whatever clothing, buildings that you're leveraging. With all that info dump done, we finally move on to the big theory craft element of this video. So what exact combos of national spirits, governments, and different varying ages can be a huge buff for picking out strong strategies? Let's start off with something that's not like an obvious one. God King Dynasty, one of the main importances of it is getting integrated towns, because pyramid improvements, which are the main way to complete this, requires having 3 integrated cities. So pretty early on you'll want to get as many towns together as possible. But something that isn't like an obvious combo to it is cons, because Call to War will spawn more horse archers in whatever region you have. So this can be a great way to make space for yourself and get as many regions integrated as possible, then conquer all your neighbors around you, and then finally pivot to just a Republic and Great Masters type of way, just to increase regional efficiency and getting even stronger culture and buildings up in all these areas that you just took. So you can integrate even more regions after that. It's more just the positioning of how the government wants you to play can actually inform your choices more than the domain type itself. Like God King, nothing tells you want to go to war, but Warpath can be a strong pivot from it. And since you'll have more cities integrated than the average start, it can be a smart way to pivot from there. Let's make this as a bit of a PSA for people who end up getting a bad forest start. Naturalist is going to be your only way out if you're going to be continuing from there, surrounded by forests on everywhere, have very few tiles to settle, like housing tiles or sanitation. So the way you can get a decent advantage from a situation like that is growing your population as fast as you can, getting the housing innovation event from forest tiles, getting your plus food so you can keep growing at a stronger pace than most, as well as getting your culture from all these tiles that should be weighing you down but eventually just will end up slingshotting you. And the reason why extra population is so good at this point in the game is Imperial Dynasty just gives you extra knowledge and production per population, which will save you ultimately. And then eventually you can move on to something like machinery, which will give you charcoal furnace, which will give you much better production out of these log tiles. And also, Apprentice gives you an extra worker slot, so that saves you from building an extra one, if you're still cramped in space-wise. Once you finally hit Era 5, you can finally get your Clear Cut, which is a engineering domain power. So if you were building engineering XP from machinery, it ends up working out in that regard. Let's talk about Diplomacy 1. For first national spirit, you can either go the warfare route, deal with people close to you so you can get more cities and more power score under your belt, or just go the Olympians route and getting as many envoys out to people as possible. Either way is beneficial, it kind of just depends on the start. And then you end up pivoting over to spice merchants in Era 4. This will get you much better diplomacy gain, as well as the send treasure power, which can be massive for getting diplomacy gains over the people around you, getting people on your side. And make sure you keep building your power score over these eras so people don't think you're weak and they won't work with you for diplomacy in that regard. But the big diplomacy bombs you can do with this can get you more allies in the long run. And then finally, you can change over to scholars and build up all that goodwill and diplomacy into getting a big knowledge bump. That should be able to propel you ahead of the pack. And with more research, you can get up to something like Era 8 much quicker than everyone else, where you can finally switch to democracy, which gives you more knowledge from all these research trees that you're getting and all these alliances. So that's the strong way you're able to leverage knowledge if you set up your cards correctly. You have to play smart during the earlier eras. You won't have a leg up, so you just have to out-strategize all the people around you. Let's talk about a game-long strategy that can be very powerful. Culture powers can give you almost anything in this game, depending on how you have it lined up. It can give you armies, it can give you knowledge, it can give you more towns, it can give you boosts to regional efficiency, it can give you anything. So getting as much as possible so your builds as fast as possible is a huge deal in this game. So let's concoct a strategy that will maximize as much culture as possible. For Era 1, there's not really like a best option. I'd say mound builders probably give you the most advantage. Gets you culture early and quick. But you mostly just want to stay like above water during this era. Then for Age 4, aim for Age of Monuments, because super monuments that you get later can increase your culture regional efficiency by 20% in one of your towns, which can be massive for what we're going to be talking about later. Because what you want to be picking next is Theologians, which is a hard one to avoid, I know, because it's almost better than all of these combined. Theologians allows you to get more religion, as well as getting arts XP per population, as well as getting bonus culture for just religion in general. So getting your population growth in check with this can give huge benefits throughout the whole mid game, and even the end of the game if you play your cards right. Because as the next step, move over to sultans. The whole goal of this is to get your population as high as possible. So theologians and sultans combo perfectly. More population you have, the more culture you get. And the more culture you get, the more innovation events you can trigger. Because throughout this, if you're getting more culture pops on average, get more cutting edge events going. And something that you'll find with a lot of wonders in this game that you can get from these innovation events is that they will give you domain XP equivalent to your population. So you can throw more buildings to give you more domain XP, which gives you much more powerful empire over time. So your one city will just become a monolith. And by the end of the game, you can change your government over to fundamentalists to keep that religion bonus the rest of the game. And suddenly, you're in a spot where you're building tons of domain, you've got tons of culture, so outcompeting you in those eras is going to be hard. It's being to leverage all that to build up all the cities around you to get better production and just more options to get ahead of everyone else. For some fun, I'm going to tour through some of my previous save files to show how you can get a lot out of fluid decision making for making combos that make sense for you in the game state that you had, and how to make informed decisions along the way. in kind of a more practical application. Are you ready? Let's go. So as you can see, I went on the warpath in this game, but it wasn't immediately obvious what you'd pick. God King was kind of just a choice. There wasn't much thought in the way of that. I had some hills nearby, so I figured it would work out just fine. You get a bit of culture back for that. Where my strategy ended up solidifying more solidly is that I spawned next to Canada, who were friendly with me for a bit, and then had a few wars back and forth throughout all these mountains. But as a way to keep defended, you use theologians, which is a great engine for any sort of culture building. This religious education is huge, and you can set up outposts wherever you want, utilizing all the engineering XP I was building throughout God King to get around to getting a bunch of outposts around, spread religion, as well as the monasteries that are theologian specific. And a lot of these strategic choices can be sort of on happenstance. Because I was dealing with Canada to my immediately south here, and they were pretty boxed in, and I think it was Mexico up here who had free reign about above this line. They settled here as about the furthest south they got. So I had free reign for all this flat land in this area to build up bigger cities. And because I wanted to keep integrating cities, I ended up going Empire to keep my culture upkeep down. As well as if I, on any given moment's notice, I could pivot to fighting up north at any time. And since I was using such a strong religious build, as well as my opponent having towns that were covered in jungle up here, it became obvious to conquer these territories, integrate these vassals for cheap and easy, as well as getting culture from there, and choosing war priests to get more pyramids, which is funny enough, but as well as getting bigger culture bombs because I'm killing capitals, because I'm getting the empire buff from expansionism as well as the war priests, flower wars, will give you a ton of culture back. And these combo well together because Emperor's Palace gives you extra warfare XP, as well as everything that I was building in the interim, which is why I kept switching stuff to armories as I went along. A outpost like this is a good example where I have a castle outpost on some junk tiles that I'm just never going to expand to. I get one resource out of it, that is nice. Able to have a hill that I can put a monastery on, and then 3 flat tiles that I can do whatever I want with. So I can have as many abbeys as I want, but when I need to pivot later, I can just change these 2 armories, give a change in direction, because my warfare XP was not this high when I started switching over. You end up changing some of your metal production over to rifles, which are in this town, I think. Yeah, a bunch of metal production over to rifles, and then you're just on your way. That's why pivoting to war at this point in the game is not the worst strategy. As you can see, like, I have no enemies here. Mexico ended up eating the people up in this northern region, and then I just took them all back. Because the more small capitals you take, the more you get back. And these Jaguar warriors helped in keeping my army strong. So even loose strategies like this, you can find synergies if the right opportunity arises. Slightly modified version of the knowledge slingshot strat. I like to call it heavy hand diplomacy. Started with naturalist just because happenstance of the start I got. Whenever you have a bunch of tree tiles like right out on your periphery in all directions, even if you don't plan on using it for lumber towns, they can be useful just for building extra culture. And since I had a place to put harbors nearby, it was easy to justify the choice. It spawned here, then across the water, over in this direction. This is my neighbor that I spawned next to. Ended up using Shogun to increase regional efficiency in your capitals by just leaving daimyos there. This was before they were nerfed, by the way. As well as being able to have samurais to back up that power. And because of those samurais, I was able to get a strong lead in power score and start rampaging across most of the world. Even took out some of Greece's territory over in this direction. And since if you take down people with high power score, while keeping your religion intact, you can get quite a strong base in diplomacy XP that you can use to basically coerce all your weaker neighbors that can't really compete with you. Rushed out envoys around, as well as having military bases basically dotted around the map because of the warfare path. That gave me the ability to keep clergy around to keep upping my religious percentage, ultimately resulting in the Age of Victory and the Age of Harmony, and being able to coerce them into requesting the adoption of your religion. This becomes easier with the compel option they added in later updates, but just being to outcompete them in the first place gives you a huge benefit. And since I was forcing nations into being aligned with me religion-wise, that increases favor and making it much easier to get alliances. So scholars worked out great in this instance. So you end up getting translator and tons of knowledge, and as you can see here, even though I was working towards an Age of Harmony victory era, I literally ran out of text to be able to research and delay that into the Age of Rocketry, because no one else can compete. So going on the offensive early in the game ended up rewarding me much later on with benefits that didn't seem quite tangible yet, and I didn't even need feudal monarchies buffs to diplomacy XP to be able to get there. This was also the game where I figured I couldn't play on adept difficulty anymore. It was a little too easy. So if you were thinking to yourself, there's so many national spirits and governments that give you big bonuses to vassals, why don't I choose all of them? Well, go for it, because it actually is a very strong strategy. So for this game, I ended up choosing the biggest map size there was, and choosing as many methods to increase the amount of vassals as well as the strength of them at any point. So I ended up going God King mostly as a whim. I chose it just to get some culture bonuses, so placing towns wouldn't be an issue, because placing towns in your vassals is a very important part of the strategy, otherwise they will get population capped very quick. If you wanted to go warriors instead, because it comboed well with chivalry, and you were planning to do more of a warfare path into getting the advantage here, that's completely understandable, because chivalry gives you your population growth benefit in vassals. As well as for the government in Era 3, I chose Kingdom, which allowed you to get prosperity growth a bit faster, as well as being able to leverage the knowledge and population, as well as get cheaper settlers so I can move settlers all around me as early as I could in the game, since I had all this space. Ended up integrating a second city here because it was a strong production city, as well as having a good farming town to balance it out. Then eventually finally got to feudal monarchy. Vassal growth got much faster, and your prosperity cap gets raised to 350. Picked up colonialism, get your prosperity max raised up to 425, as well as being able to boost it by 50% for 4 turns. And then saying, screw it to modern governments, who cares about all this faction shit? Feudal monarchy already gives me a big benefit. And you take international finance to give you additional 50% vassal prosperity max. And you will see some of my biggest vassals. This is with the colonialism buff imposed. 712% prosperity, giving me this much knowledge and culture, as well as these domains, for nothing, no upkeep, which is the main benefit of vassals in the first place. My culture penalty from region is only 7 because I have 3. And I only added Edinburgh very late into the game just to get more oil. And as you can see from the totals, my vassals are giving me more culture than any of my other sources by far. For my cities alone, I'm only producing 40% of the amount I'm getting from vassals. The other biggest source is just from diplomacy. And then some of my outposts are colonies, so they give you a little bit, as well as some religion. And my knowledge alone is outpacing everything else by far. So yes, doubling down on vassals can give you strong benefits. I didn't end up having to fight Spain to my north, but with this gigantic mountain range in the way, Babylonia and China just didn't ever end up becoming a threat. I even became bros with the revolutionary Babylonia. Colonialism is great for these giant maps as well, since the oceans are so much bigger. Extra move speed is huge. What did I choose for my starting bonus? Yeah, plus movement for non-combatants. Ended up working out well because larger maps just end up giving you a fuck ton of big patches of single regions, so giant desert, giant mountain range, giant jungle, giant amount of forest. Wait a second, that's not America. What the hell's all this? Trying to rewrite history or something here. For the last one, I just want to talk about what a combination of all my favorite governments and national spirits can end up resulting in. For Age II, my favorite is Ancient Seafarers because it can give much better use case out of coastal towns in the early game, as well as get you more money just in general. This can be a pretty strong option until like the latter half of the mid game, because the amount of production doesn't end up scaling, unfortunately, is the main issue with this one. For Age 4, my favorite domain is Spice Merchants, because you get to play a fun minigame of getting free trade posts everywhere, and also being able to leverage deserts in a much more fun way than other options allow. Spice Merchants also do thrive off of that extra money that you build in something like Seafarers. So the Sun's treasure power costs 100 gold, so being able to build up as much gold as possible ends up working out. And also combos one of my preferred starting bonuses, which is discounted rush production. So in cities when you're paying for buildings, ends up working out that more money can give you more power in that regard, as well as being able to pay culture, of course. And of course I've talked about it a ton during this video, but I really do like feudal monarchy. I find playing the vassal game is much more fun in this game than playing... It's hard to call it wide or tall in this game because you're tall in the sense that you have fewer integrated cities, but you have a much wider area of different places you're supporting, so who knows what you call it, but I think the vassal game's a bit more fun. I definitely undervalued integrating more cities earlier through the game. Generally, as a tip, throughout this game, I recommend having 2 cities integrated in the Age of Iron, 3 by like the middle to end of Age of Kings, and then by the end of the Renaissance get to 4. And outside of that, the benefits are a bit smaller. Being able to juggle all those regions in general. This is just a general rule of thumb. You don't have to follow it exactly. Also, this one that you're looking at was like a joke game, basically. I I was just picking all engineering domains because it's kind of a terrible strategy, so I just wanted to see how rough it would be. Ended up working out fine. But that's just because I spawned on a continent with only one other player on a pretty big map. Top it off, my favorite of Era 6, it's colonialism. But colonialism actually coincides quite well with spice merchants because they get free. Because spice merchants gets free trade posts, which translates into colonialism's trade factories, which is good, as well as placer claim, being able to put down outposts anywhere. So those two actually end up comboing well in the end. This is just choices based on what I find fun in the game, and it ends up comboing well together. So you can find strong ways to combo in this game that may be unorthodox. I'd like to hear any fun combos that you have used in the past down in the comments. Because I think that's the strong point in Millennia in general. The game is about customizing what is your strong points in the Empire, or just adapting to the time and coincidence and how it works. I have criticisms for how these scenarios can come up in this game, with how rocky diplomacy is in this game, that there's just a very similar path of playing the early game and then fighting your neighbor, and then it's just boring from there. I do hope you enjoyed this video and got something out of the analysis I was able to provide, and getting any clarity out of what are strong options and how to perceive what are the strengths and weaknesses of these national spirits and governments, because it can be overwhelming just taking a look at these small blurbs, as well as the million little things you have to hover over and think through what can be right. So giving brief descriptions to them, being like, this is get more knowledge out of space, this is fight thing, this is get more out of your towns, this is get more computer factories, money minigame, getting budget democracy as well as a generalist option, getting needs out of analytics, and your culture option for the era, diplomacy to knowledge, good leaders, money for good units, getting leaders out of your religion, innovation and early electricity, population build, kind of a lot of everything, man. Culture and integrated cities help, knowledge propeller, rolling the game but only for a little bit, get a bit more production out of wood, have defense and regional efficiency bonuses, leveraging outposts and diplomacy, funny horse rush, the best one, it gives you so much culture, goddamn, money for coastal towns, good for forests, cultural meat, fighting your neighbors but bad, fighting your neighbors but good, as well as defending yourself, leveraging culture to build a wider empire, getting culture buffs as well as food discount, and launching out envoys to get an early edge in diplomacy as well as some culture. That's the lay of the land as it is right now. Of course, there's not every single government and national spirit in the game. I'll be covering the DLC ones in a separate video, of course. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you another day. Yes, I know I skipped autocracy. You don't have to tell me. It's just not relevant for this guide.